How we doing, everyone? Welcome back. So today we're going to be taking our first look at the subreddit motorcycles. I'm curious to see what's going on. Let's get started. Honda CBR 500R buying advice. Hi all, I'm looking to upgrade to this bike from a CBR 300R. Just wanted any advice. I talked him down to I imagine that's rupees. 37.5k, which is about 2k in dollars, including a sprocket and a chain service kit. My main concern is the bike's got a fair amount of mileage, 110k kilometers. Any advice would be much appreciated. Thanks. Let's take a look, shall we? Okay, I mean, the picture looks alright. Yeah, the thing is, I don't know what it is about pictures in ads, but they always seem to hide things. You never get a proper look at the bike until you're actually in front of it, you know? Okay, 2014, 110,000 kilometers. I mean, what is that? That is 70,000 miles, 80,000 miles, something like that. Let's have a look at the conversion. Yeah, that's 68,000 miles. I mean, that is a lot, but it's not as crazy as you might think. It all depends on the service history for me. If it has been serviced every year, because I mean it's only a 2015 or registered in 2015, if it's had oil changes and filters every year, there's no reason why any motorcycle can't reach 100,000 miles. Well, I say any, you know. The Japanese brands, any bike from a Japanese brand, apart from maybe 125s, you should be able to reach 100,000 miles if they're serviced right. So that's the first thing that I would look at is service history. Was used by a learner to gain confidence in Pretoria. Oh, Pretoria. Oh, okay, so it's in South Africa, right, I see. Used by myself daily as a medium distance commuter. Medium distance? I mean, well, we're in 2024 now, so that is 9 years ago, so what's that per year? What? Okay, 7,000 miles per year. That's quite a lot, to be honest. That is quite a lot. I mean, I do probably about 4,000 miles a year on my bikes, and in-house afterwards. Odds beyond normal servicing, rear wheel bearings at 95,000 kilometers, have the kit for the front tire when it comes due, dropped it once at low speed on the right, only cosmetic damage. Surgeon orders no more riding. Oh, that sucks, man. Quite a lot of mileage. I'm not familiar with the service book for these bikes, so it might be worth having a look to see what items are needed, but I mean, yeah, rear wheel bearings, it looks like they've had a look at the service requirements of this bike, so it might be alright. Eventually these bikes will wear out, alright, there's no two ways about it. It depends on your budget and the availability of bikes, I suppose, where you live. Maybe in your market, which I imagine is South Africa, if you're struggling to find a motorcycle and these bikes hold their value quite well, it's like in Europe, it's quite common to see loads of cars available well over 100,000 miles on them, and they're still worth thousands of euros. So it really depends on the market, but I'd give it a go, personally. I'd give it a shot. It depends on the amount of riding you intend to do with it. If you intend to do thousands and thousands of miles per year, then maybe this isn't the bike for you. But, you know, 3,000 miles a year, something like that, 5,000 kilometers per year. Yeah, might last you for a good few years, and hopefully, again, you'll be able to sell it on afterwards. Is it worth it to buy a smaller bike to track? I'm wondering if it's worth to buy a smaller displacement bike to take to the track take to the track and learn on. I've been riding for a couple of years now, started on a Rebel 500, then upgraded to a CBR 650R the next year. I love my CBR and I want to do some track days this year. I've been thinking about it and realised my 650 might be a bit big to really be able to push it to its limits and learn as a new rider. I've heard it's good to learn on smaller bikes and was wondering if it would be worth it to buy a Kawasaki Ninja 300 to be able to track and learn how to ride better. I know there are those people that say it's fine to start on a 1000cc bike, you just need wrist control, but I want to know which would be ideal, pushing smaller bikes to their limits or tracking a biggish bike and not being prepared for its potential. I've already ridden a couple of years, so I'm not a complete noob, just wanted to improve. Is a 650 manageable for first time tracking, or would a small bike be better? Alright, so their reasoning is smaller displacement, less power, meaning I'd be able to push the bike to its limits more and learn more. Smaller bike, lighter, meaning easier to handle and learn proper positioning and techniques. Cheaper bike, less money, meaning if I do crash and slide it, it isn't my 650 that I love and is worth more. I'm mostly looking at 300 to 400cc right now, but I'm open to any suggestions from people with experience. Also, since there is only one track in my province with limited track days, I'll probably only be able to do like four to six track days a year. Wow, okay. Interesting. So my take on this is, yeah, the obvious choice is to start off on a smaller bike if you have the cash to do it, if it's something that you actually want to invest a lot of time into. But 4 to 6 track days a year, that's not a lot. There are people that go track days every month, multiple track days every month. But so I don't know if buying a whole new bike is worth it for 4 to 6 track days personally. Now, I don't ride on track myself. There aren't any tracks really that are that close by. I think the closest one to us is Thruxton, and I'm not sure if they do track days really. If they do, again, like this, they're very limited. So but it's something I'm looking to get into. But a 300, I think, would be a good choice, to be honest. I mean, you're looking at a Ninja 300. Yeah, I'd say that's a great choice personally. Okay, so we've got a parallel twin, 296cc, fuel injected. This is from 2013, by the way, this model. So, I don't know, that might vary, I suppose, a little bit, depending on the year. But we're looking at 39 horsepower and 27 newton meters of torque. Now, in an ideal situation, I'd personally be looking at an inline 4 rather than a parallel twin. But, again, I suppose for beginners, parallel twin is going to be perfect for the most part. What's the weight? Wet weight, 172 kilograms. That is nice. Yeah, I'd say that's a pretty neat little bike to start off with. The only question that I would be asking myself is whether or not buying a whole new bike just to do track days is worth it. 4 to 6 track days a year. I'm not so sure. Because remember, it's not just a case of buying the bike as well. Are you looking to convert it into a track bike as well exclusively, or are you looking to ride this on the road as well? Because if I were you, I'd personally be looking to stick it on the road, so then you can still enjoy the bike on the road and then take it to track days as and when it's available. So that's what I would do. Otherwise, it wouldn't really be worth it. You know, you're paying for the insurance and the tax and the maintenance on the bike for a whole year just for 4 to 6 track days. Not to mention extra tires that you're probably going to need as well, spare tires. It's interesting. I would actually... I don't think a 650 is too bad, to be honest, on a track. They're not the most powerful things in the world. Well, let's have a look at the CBR 650R, shall we? So we're looking at the 2022 model 650R. Yeah, it's a 4-cylinder. Looking at 94 horsepower, 63 newton meters of torque. I personally don't think that's that bad, really. It's not like you're looking at a 600cc Super Sport. Wet weight, 208 kilograms. Yeah, that's getting up there in the weight, I suppose. I wouldn't be afraid to try your 650R out on track. Just be careful. Make sure that your insurance covers it as well, because that's one of the biggest issues that you might find is trying to find insurance for the bike that will actually allow you to take the bike on track days. Most insurance companies don't even want to hear it. You know, they won't even consider insuring you for track days. Maybe some of you in the comments can let everyone know whether or not there are some specific insurance companies that will do insurance for these bikes. But from my experience, even if you're doing like training days and the training days are taking place on a track, insurance companies still don't insure you for that. Even if it's not for racing, it's for learning to ride, it's for advanced riding techniques, things like that, they won't even insure you for that. Yeah, it's difficult. If you have the money and you are prepared to deal with the maintenance and you're prepared to deal with that insurance and the added cost, then yeah, go for it, to be honest, and use it on the roads as well. Use it for everyday riding as well as track day riding. But it might be worth getting some different wheels as well, ones that have ones that are track tires and ones that are street tires, because as good as street tires are, you get so much more grip on track tires. So it's worth getting track tires, in my opinion, if you're going to do it properly. Maybe there's a few mods that you can do to it as well, like getting some better brakes, maybe some aftermarket suspension. As much as you can do to make the bike more track worthy without making it illegal to ride on the roads, if you know what I mean. But yeah, I'd say that's a good idea. You could look at a Ninja 400. Again, it depends on your budget. Maybe an R3 as well. That's another choice that you could look at. What other bikes are there? So to be honest with you, you could get a cheap 650 as well if you really wanted to. Yeah, they're going to be a little bit heavier. It's not going to be too bad. Remember that most of the speed you're going to be doing on the track, you're not going to feel the weight that much. So, at least for a beginner anyway. Oh, interesting question. Are there any splits or rivalry in the community? Like the title states, are there any real splits or rivalry in the motorcycle community? The only real one I can think of is Harleys versus everyone else, specifically sport bikes. Are there any others that come to mind like this against a company style of bike? Let's have a look at the comments here, I'm curious. Here are some I've seen over 18 years of riding. Advocates versus squids, small ADV bike riders and frequent ADV riders versus big ADV riders. Dirt and enduro enjoyers versus all ADV riders. Yeah, that's one I've heard before as well, like dirt bikes versus adventure bikes. Year-round riders versus weekend warriors and good weather riders. Japanese bike affordability and reliability fans versus European bike showing off and excitement fans. Agile or fast bikes fanatics versus heavy, uncomfortable bike fanatics. Cafe racers versus everyone. Harleys versus everyone. Harley versus Clibbins? I've never heard of Clibbins before. Everyone versus tricycles. Goddamn Clibbins. I don't know what Clibbins are. What are Clibbins? I absolutely love the had a layer down meme, but I don't understand the second part of the joke. Clibbins means grass clipping, but now refers to any hazard in the road. Alright, so I imagine that that's like people who like to lean the bike over quite a lot, maybe? I don't know. Yeah, I think I'd agree with this list for the most part. Year-round riders versus weekend warriors and good weather riders. I don't know if this one is such a rivalry, so to speak, because if we're being honest, most riders, if not all riders, would certainly prefer to ride their bikes in good weather, in decent weather conditions. It doesn't have to be perfect, but decent. Just riding in like winter in snow or something like that for me is really miserable. I do it anyway, but I don't enjoy it anywhere near as much as I do on a good day. So I don't really understand that. Weekend riders, yeah, what's the point? Just if you have a motorcycle, use it. Ride to work, commute, use it every day. When you're paying for it, for God's sake. And bikes, like anything, they need to be used. You need to use them. Otherwise, you get bored of them and you neglect them. The more you use them, the more you're willing to look after it. So ride your bikes as much as you can. Small ADV bike riders and frequent ADV bike riders versus big ADV riders. I'm not going to lie, I'm not much of a fan of adventure bikes, to be honest with you. They don't really serve much of a purpose apart from they're just another touring bike, in my opinion. There's not really a lot of adventuring you can do especially on a big adventure bike anyway. If you get small adventure bikes, they make a bit more sense because they're a little bit more lightweight, a little bit more like dirt bike, so to speak. I suppose the biggest difference between an adventure bike and a dirt bike is you can pack stuff on an adventure bike. So, I don't know, camping gear or something like that. Maybe that's the difference, but let's be honest here. How many of you that have an adventure bike actually do any kind of off-roading whatsoever? There's not really a lot of off-roading you can do here in the UK anyway. Maybe in somewhere like the United States where there's a lot more wilderness, then maybe there's more of a market there. But here in the UK, I don't really see the point in adventure bikes. If you're looking at buying an adventure bike, look at a Tourer, because Tourers a lot of the time are more comfortable. You can pack just as much stuff on a Tourer and they'll be faster, they'll be more powerful, they'll have more torque. For the most part, I say that, but a lot of them have similar engines anyway. So it's like if you look at a Versys from Kawasaki, I think like the Versys 650, it uses the exact same engine as the Ninja 650, which is like the Sport Tourer. So I don't know, maybe there's not much difference there. See, advocates versus squids. I don't fall into either of these categories because as much as I understand that ATGAT all the gear all the time, that's what that means, as much as I appreciate it, a lot of the time, or sometimes it's not practical to wear all your gear. I mean, when it's really hot, I'm talking ridiculously hot, you're not going to be wearing all your gear. You're not going to want to wear all your gear. I don't think it's that much of an issue every now and then to ride without your jacket, you know? I've done it before. Most of us have done it before. I really don't understand why people get so irate about it. It's a choice. It's the individual's choice. It's nothing to do with anyone else. It's no one else's business. I don't know why people, like, we've done a video about this before, about why this ATGAT shaming needs to stop. Because there's no point. A rider's going to do what a rider's going to do. And as much as it's the better idea to wear your gear all the time, simply that's not what people are going to do. Simple as that. I'm actually one of those people as well that doesn't believe in helmets being mandatory. As much as it might sound stupid, and I wear my helmet all the time anyway. One, because it's a legal requirement, but two, because it's the sensible thing to do. Your head's the most vulnerable part of your body, so it makes sense to wear a helmet all the time. If someone doesn't want to wear the helmet on a motorcycle, that's up to them. That's their business. It's their choice. It's their risk. You know what I mean? So, yeah, people that are really into this stuff needs to take a step back and think, well, what's the bigger picture here? That someone's actually riding bikes, or that they haven't got all the kit, so they're not allowed to ride a motorcycle. You know, some people can't afford it. Simple as that. I prefer people to get into riding bikes and riding bikes properly, so they're safe actually whilst they're riding, than trying to rely on protective gear to keep them out of trouble. You know what I mean? Japanese bike affordability and reliability fans versus European bikes. Yeah, I suppose there is a bit of a rivalry there. I don't know. It's not as big for me as like Harleys versus everyone, because they're totally different bikes. If you know what I mean. A lot of the time, European bikes and Japanese bike, they share a lot in common. They are a lot of the time about performance. Japanese bikes arguably are more reliable. Statistically, they're more reliable as well. And yeah, they're better value for money in a lot of cases, and it keeps the European brands on their toes, because the Japanese motorcycle market is absolutely huge. So European brands have got to try and get themselves up to the level of Japanese brands to even sell their bikes. And as much as some people who might buy a BMW, for example, and they only ride it on weekends, as much as reliability might not be such an issue for them, it is still an issue. My wife's dad, my father-in-law, he has a BMW Tourer, and the gearbox went on it. It's only a 2015 motorcycle. He doesn't ride all that much, and the gearbox went on it. For God's sake, it's a gearbox. How can a gearbox go wrong? And that's why, me personally, I wouldn't buy a BMW. I find that there's too many issues with BMW motorcycles. Their cars have a much better reputation than their bikes, and even then, these days, when you think about it, their bikes and their cars are ultra expensive. So really, you even if it's a weekend experience or good weather experience that you want out of a motorcycle, reliability is still really important. You don't want to have a £5,000 bill on something that shouldn't have broken. You know what I mean? My ZX9R, for God's sake, that's 24 years old. Well, 25 years old nearly. And it doesn't have any issues with its gearbox. Yeah, I don't know. But European bikes have a lot to offer, but if you want performance and reliability, Japanese is the way to go, simple as that. But yeah, but like I said, if you do have a little bit more cash and you're not necessarily worried about the reliability of the bike as much, then go for it, buy a European one. Just walked my bike home 5 miles. I filled her up with gas, then noticed it was leaking pretty back from underneath the bike. I looked around and found that the fuel filter type thingy was burnt and had a hole in it, maybe from the exhaust or engine. Looks like it's attached to a hose that goes underneath the airbox. So I took it off and unplugged the hose, and my bike started leaking gas from the petcock and carbs, and it wouldn't start. Battery died from cranking it. What the hell happened? How do I fix it? Please, anyone help me out. It's a Kawasaki 2009 Vulcan EN500. 2009, they wouldn't have carbs, would it? They'd be fuel injected, surely. Yeah, 2009 Kawasaki, yeah, they'd all be fuel injected. There would be no carbs, so throttle bodies. Yeah, that's it's a fuel tank breather. Yes, yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's $9. It's supposed to connect one end of the fuel tank, the other end hangs free by the kickstand of the bike. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I've pulled that off my wife's Ninja 125 before, actually. But it still doesn't exactly tell you why it's leaking. There might be other issues with it, to be honest with you, than just this. I don't know. Yeah, if you don't really know what you're looking at, it's always good to get a second opinion, especially because you might be looking in totally the wrong place. You know, you might think that there's an issue with the bike when actually that is not the issue, and you're taking yourself on a wild goose chase. So sometimes just taking it to a mechanic to take a look might be the best thing to do. And even if it's a case of, well, the mechanic tells you what's wrong and then you try fixing it yourself, that's an option as well, you know? What temperature is too low for you? Oh dear, that is horrendous. That's a motorcycle that might have been stored outside, I imagine. My car broke down and it's the start of the winter, being 26 to minus 32 degrees Fahrenheit on my morning commute. What's that in degrees C? Is that minus 5? Okay, so we're looking at about minus 3 degrees C. That's not too bad, to be honest. I'm surprised that the bike looks like that in minus 3 degrees C. So yeah, it must be stored outside. Been riding almost 7 years now, starting not to care about the weather, starting to wonder why I even own a car. Where do you guys draw the line? Yeah, I think a lot of the time it comes down to what you want to do with your bike. If you want to use it as a workhorse, I mean, this is an FZ7, is it? Yamaha FZ7, that's what it looks like to me. Then, yeah, use it as a workhorse. Put as much mileage on it as you want. That's what I would do, especially if you don't have a car and the bike is saving you money in your daily commutes. Then, yeah, who cares? I suppose it depends on where you live. Here in the UK, it doesn't really get that cold. I mean, it might get colder in Scotland, but in England, you're looking at up to minus 5 degrees, maybe on the worst day of the year, and that's not common either. Usually in the winter, we're hovering anywhere between minus 2 to 0 degrees C in the winter at the worst, and that is perfectly doable for a lot of riders. I see a lot of riders riding their bikes, not significant distances, but enough to get them to work and back. I've done it before as well. I've done jobs before where my commute has been half hour, and yeah, between 0 and 5 degrees, it's been okay, but that's where I start to struggle a little bit with my hands. I'm hoping that with the new heated gloves that we've got, maybe that'll change. And I mean, we are looking to come into some pretty cold weather in the near future around this area. So yeah, we'll see how they get on in 0 to 5 degrees C temperatures. But it's entirely up to you. I mean, you'll get some crazy riders in Canada that will ride in sub minus 5 degrees C, which is just outrageous in my opinion. But let's see what some other people think. If I lick the petrol tank and my tongue sticks to it, I'm not riding. New kink unlocked. 40 Fahrenheit. Too damn broke to afford any heated equipment. Plus, I'm in the flatland prairie of the Midwest. Nothing but wind to add to the wind chill. I think that's probably one of the biggest issues, isn't it? Is the wind chill. Anyone can ride around in 5 degrees, 0 degrees, but that wind chill will take it down a good couple of notches. Once it gets below 40 degrees Fahrenheit, I'm no longer enjoying the ride. Never could do cold. Yeah, that's pretty much. I mean, I suppose one of the things that you might want to consider is like the roads being icy. But to be fair, if where you live they put down a lot of salt, a lot of grit, you shouldn't have too many problems. Only if it snows and it settles. But I mean, washing the bikes might be a bit of an issue. But then again, it's the same with cars as well. If you don't wash your cars during the winter, they're going to rust up quite bad. So, and bikes are usually easier to wash for the most part anyway. Even if it's just a case of just spraying them down with some water, that's a lot of the time that's good. It's better than nothing. Getting a new motorcycle. Hey everyone, I'm currently in the market for a new motorcycle. I currently ride a 2005 Yamaha FJR 1300. That's a nice bike. I love it, but the bike is getting to the point where things are starting to fail on it, and it's really not worth it to keep fixing. I purchased it about 2 years ago for $2,500. It served me well up until the past few months. It has been my primary mode of transportation, so I've almost put 30k miles on it since owning it. It's currently sitting at 92k miles. Anyway, I've narrowed down my choices to either a 2019 MT-07 or a 2018 Kawasaki Z900. Both bikes are in good shape. The MT-07 is with 22,000 miles for $5,500, and the Z900 with only 11k miles is for $4,500. Any inputs on what route I should go and why? I finally have a four-wheeled vehicle too, so I won't need to ride it as much anymore, but I'll definitely still ride it more often than I would drive. Interesting. So your choices are an MT-07 or a Z900. Why don't you look at an MT-09 or an MT-10? Those are some pretty decent bikes as well. And why a Z900? I'd look at a Z1000. I don't imagine that the price point is going to be too different. If you're prepared to pay $5,500 for an MT-07, you should be able to get a Z1000 for $5,500. You know what I mean? So, I personally, I wouldn't look at an MT-07. I'd look at the Z900. You'd have more horsepower, more fun, more torque. I mean, what is the difference between an MT-07 and a Z900? But I'm pretty sure I'm going to know what the answer is. Right, so we've got the 2022 Z900 and MT-07. So we're looking at 125 horsepower on the Z900 and 75 horsepower on the MT-07. I'm a bit of a performance junkie, so for me it's a no-brainer. Reliability-wise, both of them should be absolutely brilliant. You shouldn't have any problems as long as you look after them or you make sure you do your oil changes. The main thing, if you do anything on your bikes, just do your oil changes. Weight-wise, I think this might be a bit of a difference. Yeah, 212 kilograms we're looking at for the Z900 and 184 for the MT-07. Not really a big deal in my opinion, especially if you've been used to riding a 1300 cruiser, then yeah, you shouldn't have any problem with the weight of either of these bikes. But looks wise, I mean, they're both pretty nice, but I do like the look of my ZH2, and the Z series is very reminiscent of the ZH2. When you look at the way how it looks, you can tell the ZH2 has been inspired by the Z series of Kawasaki motorcycles. So I prefer this one personally. But both fantastic bikes. You've got parallel twin versus inline four. I prefer inline four engines personally. For me, it's a no-brainer. I'd go for the Z900, especially because it's a little bit cheaper. You're going to have more performance, and especially if you're not going to be riding it as much as you used to, go for the cheaper bike. You get more for your money. It's more bang for your buck, and I'm all about bang for buck. Well, there you have it, everyone. Our first look at the motorcycle subreddit in 2024. Hope you enjoy these videos. I like doing them. I find them a lot of fun. A lot of shenanigans going on the subreddit. So definitely go and check it out yourselves if you haven't done so already. And I hope that my advice is useful, and I hope that it gives you some food for thought. And by all means, anyone that, if I've missed anything or if you'd like to add something to what we've discussed today, drop it down in the comment section below. I'm sure that a lot of these people would really appreciate it. But thank you again. Take care. Ride safe. And we will catch you all in the next video. Have a good one.